The Collector is a film that is similar to Saw in the highly elaborate and engineered way the serial killer deals with his victims. In fact, the original script was at one point shopped as a Saw prequel. Ultimately, the studio decided it should be its own standalone series, but there is still a lot of similarity in the way not only these traps are designed, but how the killer knows the psyche of victims well enough to draw them into the traps. These traps are very painful, have the potential to mess you up forever, and that's if you survive to tell the tale. But the Collector is also unique in that it is not him drawing you to some sketchy location you wouldn't normally go into. No. This man makes house calls. Perhaps he was someone that wasn't allowed to play the board game Mousetrap as a child and grew up resentful and bitter of that and decided to apply those elements to his victim. Or maybe he was allowed to play, and he got way too attached to the idea. Regardless, the man is obsessed, and he tends to target groups of people, families, or other gatherings in a single location, and he's called the Collector because he always leaves one alive that he takes with him. He takes them from the scene in a large wardrobe trunk, and he often uses that as a kind of gift to his next victims as a harbinger of what's to come, or well, we'll get to that in the sequel. The plot revolves around a man named Arkin who has a wife and daughter. He spent some time in prison, and unfortunately, the family has gotten in trouble with some loan sharks, and his wife and daughter appear to be the collateral. He's lived a life of crime, hence the stint in prison, and is particularly skilled at cracking safes. His loan has come due at midnight that night, so he needs money fast, and the best way he knows to do it is utilizing these skills, and he's been staking out a wealthy family for weeks now to rifle through their safe for what looks like a large diamond or jewel of some sort. He's been masquerading as a handyman, which is how he learned that the family was going out of town, and he needed that money that night anyway, so I guess tonight's the night. The family returning home early is actually the least of his worries, and apparently happened well before he even broke in to go try to crack the safe. Because the family has already fallen into the clutches of the eponymous Collector, who's there in the house, has set up traps that are designed to, maim or kill or both. We follow Arkin through a lot of back and forth. First, he tries to steal from the safe, then he realizes he's not alone in the house and decides whether to stay or leave. Then he decides to stay and still try to steal from the safe. And then he realizes not only is he not alone, but he's in grave danger. And then he realizes that the house is pretty well sealed off and he can't escape easily even if he wants to. He's dodging traps left and right. There's razor wire and bear traps and screws sticking up through all of the stairs in a staircase. And all the while, he's looking for the young girl of the family who seems to be missing or hiding or something and is still in grave danger being in this house with the Collector there at all. This movie is very stylized in a manner that is befitting of the time. The whole film has a kind of music video quality to it. There's some funky lighting, some interesting angles. It's well done from that perspective. And overall, I think it is a fun ride. I enjoyed the experience of watching this movie, even though it can be quite cheesy at times. And the end is also a cliffhanger setting up a sequel where Arkin becomes the only available option through a process of very gruesome elimination for the Collector to take as his one victim he leaves alive. What happens to him next follows in the sequel, The Collection, which is the very next film on my list of 31 Days of Horror. If you want to join in on the fun, the list of films I'm watching is in my pinned videos.